Have you been told about the dangers of certain things by those wiser than you are? Have you ever wondered just how much of what you've been told is the truth? Adults like to tell kids, and sometimes other adults, all kinds of things about the world, whether they really know better or not. And we're here to set the record straight. Get ready to get over your fears of these supposedly dangerous things. Get ready for known dangers that aren't very dangerous. 12. Hitchhiking. Have you always been warned never to hitchhike or pick up hitchhikers because of the dangerous nature of doing so? Well, be free of that fear, because statistics show that hitchhiking isn't even all that dangerous. In fact, some of the biggest dangers of doing the hitchhiking are getting hurt alongside the road and getting in the car with drivers that might not be the best at driving. You could also get left in the middle of nowhere, which would never be fun, but you're more than likely not going to be physically harmed during the trip. As long as you stay aware of your surroundings and trust your instincts, chances are you're going to be just fine should you choose to hitchhike. 11. Plane troubles. If you've ever boarded a flight and been worried about things like an engine blowing or running out of fuel, you can feel better now, as it rarely happens and doesn't happen as it does in the movies. While yes, those 737 MAX planes did go down recently, that's a problem with those planes in particular. If you do experience engine failure or run out of fuel though, the plane should continue to glide for some time. And when it comes time to touchdown, as long as you're not flying into buildings or mountains or anything, the landing could be a bit rough. Yes, sometimes planes crash in this situation, but more people survive incidents like this than you would think. So cheer up, Charlie. 10. Raw pork. Now, we're not saying that eating raw pork isn't dangerous or anything. We're just saying it's not as dangerous as you were told, but we still don't recommend doing it. The reason you were always told to cook pork before consumption was because the way people used to feed and take care of the pigs was, well, lacking. These days, pigs get fed much better and aren't as neglected as in days past. And they mostly no longer get Trichinella asparus, the type of worm that could be transferred to humans via their meat that caused the cooking uproar in the first place. Be warned though, you might not enjoy the taste, as it's totally different than the cooked pork you're used to eating, but who knows, you might like it. Just make sure you get your rare or raw pork at a reputable restaurant or purchase a quality cut of meat from a butcher and ask about proper preparation. 9. Sharks. It's pretty well known that sharks have more reason to fear humans than we do them, but for some reason, people are still terrified of them. We're going to give you some numbers to hopefully get your fear of sharks turned around, but they'll probably get you scared of other stuff in the process. The chances of being fatally attacked by a shark are 1 in 3,748,067, whereas the possibility of, say, dying in a car crash is just 1 in 84. You're far more likely to be hit and killed by lightning, which happens to 1 in every 79,746 people. You could pass due to a stroke if you happen to be the unlucky 1 in 24, or by heart disease, which takes the life of around 1 in 5. So sharks aren't so bad, are they? Chances are you'll bite the bullet elsewhere instead of being taken out by a shark. 8. Anarchy. One definition of anarchy is a state of disorder due to absence or non-recognition of authority, which with current circumstances doesn't sound all that bad. We know we're used to having governments and authority figures telling us what to do, but you can't forget that humans once lived that way for thousands of years. It also doesn't mean that there won't be consequences for certain actions. It just means that a governing body won't be the one to take care of it. The government doesn't protect you now. They're more there to take care of punishment for crimes after the fact. And sure, there are police officers for the moment-by-moment crimes, but how many more crimes go unstopped than the other way around? The majority of people would be fine without authority, as most don't commit horrible crimes on the day-to-day, nor would they. So in all reality, anarchy probably wouldn't be the downfall of everything, just the governing body. 7. Letting kids play outside. We're not talking about taking them to the park, an outdoor mall, or wherever else you might take them that's outside. We're talking about letting them play outside, by themselves. Ask most parents, and they'll probably tell you that letting children do that these days is unsafe, or less safe than the good old days. The fact is, kids today are safer in many, many ways than they were just a few short years ago. Just looking at the rates that children get abducted by strangers makes you stop to think. In 1997, child abduction rates by a stranger were 51% higher than they were in 2012. If you're just worried about them being assaulted, have no fear, as from 1992 to 2011, physical abuse of children has fallen 55%. So as dangerous as we know letting our kids play outside is, it's not really all that dangerous, although you could potentially get arrested for doing so. 6. Phone on a flight. Oh, you know what we're talking about. Flight attendants, pilots, and a lot of time, even the passengers on flights are very insistent that everyone put their phones away before takeoff. But how dangerous are they, really? They say that cell phones can cause electromagnetic interference with the electronics of the plane, but there's no real substantial evidence that they do. And whether they do or don't, your Snapchat isn't going to make the plane you're on fall out of the sky to the ground. This isn't as dangerous or as deadly as flight crews make it seem, but you should still listen to them. Otherwise, you could find yourself escorted from the plane and possibly into the waiting arms of the police. 5. Terrorism and other crimes. Everyone knows how terrible it is to turn on the news every day and find out about something new and horrible going on around the world. But did you know that you're probably safer now than humans have ever been before? Sure, awful things happen all the time, but amazing things happen too. Although news stations typically want stories that will attract the most attention and bring them the most money, and those are the bad ones. Violence and tragedy are what sell, not happiness and contentment, so we're bound to be surrounded with the sad stuff. The internet and technology boom has also helped us stay surrounded by the bad, as generations prior weren't constantly plugged into the happenings of everything at all times. It's very unlikely that you'll perish in a terror attack or even being attacked on the streets these days. So count your lucky stars, you. 4. Pit bulls. It's sad to see such a sweet breed of dog get such a bad rap. We want to go ahead and say that any dog can be dangerous and damaging, but pit bulls have been singled out for years and are now sometimes not even allowed in certain areas, neighborhoods, or cities. The media latched onto pits and won't let go. They're now considered more aggressive and dangerous than almost any other dog. The thing is, any dog can be raised or trained to be aggressive. And many dogs other than pit bulls bite their owners, strangers, and children every year. Pit bulls are also extremely strong and can do some damage, so their attacks are often more brutal than other dogs, which doesn't help them any. But pair their treatment in the media with their reputation as being a favorite in dog fighting rings, and you've got a villain on your hands. The truth is, if they're raised right, pit bulls can be some of the sweetest dogs you'll ever get to meet. That is, if you're open to it after all of the brain poisoning against them. 3. Pripyat. If you don't know what Pripyat is, maybe you're more familiar with Chernobyl. Chernobyl is a now closed-down nuclear power plant in the abandoned city of Pripyat, Ukraine. When the Chernobyl disaster happened in 1986, it released around 20,000 roentgens of radiation an hour, and the lethal dose is just 500 roentgens in 5 hours. Despite that, 20 and some years later, people are visiting Chernobyl and Pripyat for fun. All you've got to do is get a specialist tour guide and you're good to go. And thousands of people decide to every year, and they only experience around the same amount of radiation one would on a long flight. It's best not to stick around for too long though because, radiation. But it is possible, and you're not going to drop dead right away like a lot of people would probably think. We mean the wildlife, including many living, breathing animals, is flourishing without people around, even with the radiation, so a quick trip couldn't hurt. 2. Mercury. We're talking about the element here, not the planet. You've probably been told for years that mercury is toxic to humans. Heck, mercury thermometers aren't very popular anymore, and they even warn you about the seafood. But once upon a time, nobody was scared of it, and they did things like coat change in it to make it shinier, put it in paint, and even used it making felt hats. It turns out we don't have to be as scared of it as we are, and that getting a little bit on you for a relatively short amount of time should be pretty much harmless. It absorbs through skin really slowly, so touching it shouldn't poison you. Did you know that way back in the day, people would even drink it and use it as a laxative? Technically, if you don't inhale while doing so, liquid mercury is even mostly safe to drink. Things get dangerous when it's inhaled though, which is easy to have happen since it vaporizes at room temperature. But if you don't touch it for long or even drink it without inhaling, you should be okay. Don't try it on our word though. We've seen some real dangers so far, and we still have one more to go. But first we'd like to ask, what is something your parents or other adults always warned you about that turned out to be nowhere near as bad as they said it was? Let us know in the comments below. 1. Cyanide. If you think ingesting mercury is crazy, get ready to take it one step further. We're talking cyanide here, and yes, we're serious. You can technically ingest tiny amounts of what we've always been told is a potent, deadly poison and survive. A YouTuber did just this. A man named Cody Don took a small, approximately 17 milligram portion of the substance and sprinkled it into water, and then he drank it on his channel, Cody's Lab. He did so throughout 10 to 15 minutes and was perfectly fine. He explained that a lethal dose of cyanide is right around 300 milligrams, and what he drank was nowhere near that. Mr. Cody proved that small amounts of the substance probably won't kill you, and that it really is the dose that does the killing. Crazy internet scientists. If you enjoyed this video, do us a favor and leave it a like. Subscribe to our channel so that you never miss out on any of our informative uploads, and be sure to check out this next video we picked out just for you.